Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 14th Annual USC Scripter Award. As many of you know, tonight marks the return of the Scripter Award to Doheny Memorial Library after almost 2 years of seismic retrofitting and renovation. It's wonderful to return to the Times Mirror Room, the reference room, where we are surrounded by so much architectural beauty and so many books. This evening's festivities were made possible by the commitment, creativity, and hard work of the Scripter Event Committee, chaired by Joan Yanni Mims. Joan, you and your committee have outdone yourselves to make these festivities very spectacular. Please join me again in thanking Joan and her committee. Now, it's my great pleasure to introduce a very special member of our board, our Grand Master of Ceremonies, Hal Cantor. Hal served as the Scripter Awards Master of Ceremonies from 1988 until last year, when he officially became our Grand Master of Ceremonies. Hal has always been a Grand Master of comedy. He's written for such comic legends as Ed Wynn, Bob Hope, and Jack Benny. In 1989, he was honored by the Writers Guild of America with the Patty Chayefsky Laurel Award, the Guild's highest accolade for television writing. His film writing credits include 28 screenplays, and he has also scripted 30 Academy Awards ceremonies. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming our very own Scripter Award legend, Hal Cantor.
What a nice reception. You made me feel almost as welcome as David Letterman back to CBS, but without his salary. But thank you, Sue, for that generous introduction, which I didn't need because I remember who I am. I wrote it down last year. It's been said that an audience is a reflection of the speaker. So I'm flattered to face such a handsome gathering as you all are. You are as neat and polished as Coach Henry Bibby's head, a beacon that shines like a chromium-plated trailer hitch until West Virginia came into town, it is. My own is not far behind. Is it okay to use the word behind in this context? It is a comfort to return to this glorious shelter of the printed page. And after our long playing cocktail hour, I wish you as good an evening as you feel you can still handle. Now, the primary task of the Grand Master of Ceremonies is to introduce the Master of Ceremonies. But the personable star of the Love Boat is one of those celebrities to whom it can truthfully be said he needs no introduction. So I'm not going to give him one. After dinner, Gavin will be introduced by a prominent citizen I'm not going to introduce to you either, leaving our illustrious Dr. Campbell something to say after he says whatever else he's prepared to say. And I'm sure he's prepared to say something. For those of you who wandered into this room to return a book you borrowed 2 years ago, before the retrofitting began, you should know that the rest of us are here to celebrate the winners of the Friends of the USC Libraries 14th Scripter Awards. This annual event honors the best film adaptation of a book, a trophy which I myself have failed to win for the 14th time. This year's winners are the author of and screenwriter of A Beautiful Mind, the almost That's the almost true story of a nut who teaches at Princeton. Of course, he's a brilliant nut, which differs him from some nuts who teach on this campus. I recall one who was approached by a country boy who had just arrived here as a freshman. In trying to find his classroom, he stopped a gentleman who was deeply engrossed in a book, and he said, "Pardon me, sir, but can you tell me where the Doheny Library is at?" The man snarled, "This is an institute of higher learning. I am a professor of English, young man. I am offended by a question that ends in a preposition and refuse to respond to yours unless you can rephrase your request correctly." The boy gulped and he started over. "Pardon me, but can you tell me where the Doheny Library is at, you pompous ass?" That was a dozen years ago. And you may be interested to know that that freshman spent 8 years on this campus, where he earned his MD, then another 4 years at UCLA, where he got another MD because he wanted a second opinion. The movie we honor tonight has been named the best in its category by the Writers Guild, with a second opinion by the directors. And many expect the Academy of Motion Pictures to give it a third opinion, that it's the best film of the year. Now, I expect we will too, but don't take that as gospel. I once predicted that Tennessee Williams would become a nun. It's been my painful observation that during these awards seasons, almost every speaker who presents an award or receives one turns into that ancient Oriental vaudeville act, "On Too Long." So I promised our tasteful producer, Tony Miller, to keep my remarks brief enough so that we can have dinner, see some film, listen to some music, hear some speeches, and get out of here by 10 o'clock. And Tony asked, AM or PM? Only our speakers can answer that, Tony. Now, while we're going to meet and hear eventually from the writers of A Beautiful Mind, the brilliant film that has been festooned with Oscar nominations, let's keep in mind that despite what the directors think, all movies must first be written by writers before they become films by directors. In the case of A Beautiful Mind, even its authors cannot and have not overlooked the remarkable work of Russell Crowe, who played the schizophrenic John Nash so adroitly, I wouldn't be surprised if he wins 2 Oscars. Best performance by an actor in a leading role and for Best Supporting Actor. Now, in order to fulfill my prophecy that the evening will end at a reasonable hour, I cut 10 minutes of brilliant material from my opening remarks, and I gave them to Gavin MacLeod. And he, like most actors, will probably rewrite them. God knows I would. After we have enjoyed the final speech of the evening, I will be back with a parting thought, if somebody at my table will wake me. So, in this Chinese Year of the Horse, let's now put on the feed bag. Bon appetit.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to the 14th Annual Scripter Awards. Please welcome the chair of the Scripter Event Committee, Doheny Mims.
Ladies and excuse me. I'm a little nervous tonight. Good evening, friends and guests. On behalf of the Scripter Event Committee, welcome to the 14th Annual USC Scripter Award. I want to thank all of you for your support of tonight's celebration of writers. This event would not be possible if it weren't for the dedicated staff and volunteers who have worked so diligently year-round to make this awards ceremony sparkle. I want to thank each one of them, and I especially want to thank the producer of this year's Scripter Award, Tony Miller. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our Master of Ceremonies for the second year in a row, Gavin MacLeod. Gavin started in show business at the tender age of 4 and has been a stage, film, and television star for more than 6 decades. For 7 years, he played the quick-witted journalist Murray Slaughter on the award-winning Mary Tyler Moore Show. But he is perhaps best known for his 10 years as Captain Merrill Steubing on ABC's smash hit series, The Love Boat. Gavin, who is a member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, has appeared in 17 theatrical films, co-starring with the likes of Steve McQueen, Peter Sellers, Donald Sutherland, Cary Grant, and Susan Hayward. He will be seen on the big screen again this fall in Time Changer, a film in which he plays a college professor. Please join me in welcoming my dear friend and our Master of Ceremonies, Gavin MacLeod.
Thank you. Thank you, Joan. I'm delighted to return as MC of the Scripter Award this year. I'm especially pleased to celebrate the return of the event to its traditional home in this beautiful library. I would just like to say how humbling it is to be standing here and looking around this room as I did before I even stood here, to see all the enormously talented people that God has created. And I thank you very much for coming here this evening. Now, for those of you who don't know, the USC Scripter Award is always an extraordinary event, drawing together leaders in publishing, business, education, and film to celebrate the written word. It combines the traditions of academia with the excitement of Hollywood. It is the only award that honors both the author and the screenwriter for the best book-to-film adaptation. I would now like to share with you the process that the Scripter Selection Committee underwent to choose this year's Scripter Award nominees. The 50-member selection committee is comprised of Writers Guild of America members, Academy Award-winning and nominated screenwriters, authors, film industry executives, USC faculty, and selected members of the Friends of the USC Libraries. Since the Scripter Award is a literary award, only films based on books or novellas, excluding plays or foreign releases based on books, are eligible for consideration. After the committee had an opportunity to review this year's 36 eligible movies, screenplays, and original books, it cast a first ballot to determine the 5 finalists for Best Film Adaptation. So now let's roll the clip and review this year's eligible films and highlights from the 5 finalist films. It is now my great pleasure to introduce USC's Dean of the University Libraries and Chief Information Officer, Dr. Jerry D. Campbell. Dr. Campbell, in addition to being a great guy, has infused USC with an exciting vision for the future of libraries and information technology. He has made innovative changes at the university by breaking down the barriers between traditional libraries, academic computing, and telecommunications. As a result, USC is now among the world's leaders in information services. As a matter of fact, even as I speak, information services high-tech wizards are broadcasting this event on the wild world web. So everyone start smiling. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming a really great guy, Dr. Jerry Campbell.
Thank you, Gavin. I really love working with someone with whom I have something in common. It's great to have you as our Master of Ceremonies. And Hal, it's great to have you as our Grand Master of Ceremonies. I don't get to see Hal but a couple of times a year. It reminds me of a wonderful country song. It's called I Feel So Bad Without You, It's Almost Like Having You Here. I would like to begin by making a few introductions. My favorite introduction of all is to introduce to you my lovely wife, Vita. Vita? We have two USC deans with us this evening, Liz Daly and her husband, Jamie Hendeman, of the School of Cinema Television, and Marilyn Flynn and her husband, Horace Sheldon, School of Social Work. And I really appreciate the support from these deans. We also have with us several members of the USC Board of Trustees. I'd like to introduce them and let you recognize them as a group. Bill Allen and his wife Marie, Monty Fisher, Reggie Lathan and his wife Nancy, Ken Leventhal and his wife Elaine, who has been the president of our Friends and wonderful supporter, Lorna Reed, her husband Chuck, Virginia Ramo and her husband Cy, and Dick and Bonnie Cook, our trustees. Thank you. Now, we have a special gift for USC alumna Virginia Ramo, who, along with her husband, Dr. Cy Ramo, will receive the university's highest honor, the USC Presidential Medallion, 3 days from now. Where are you, Virginia? Oh, over here. Yes, good. The flowers. And we also have a special presentation for Dick Cook, a USC alumnus and longtime friend of the USC Libraries, to celebrate his recently being named chairman of Walt Disney Studios. Congratulations, all of you. Now I would like to ask Al Ruddy and the Scripter Selection Committee Chair, who was the Scripture Selection Committee Chair, and all other members of the Selection Committee with us tonight, to please stand and be recognized. Without your work, we wouldn't be here. Al, thank you. Thank all members of the committee. I would also like to acknowledge and thank our Scripter Award presenters, Ann Archer, Josh Lucas, and Paul Bettany. Thank you for your assistance. You may have noticed in your program, Brian Grazer was originally scheduled to be a presenter this evening. Unfortunately, a scheduling conflict arose and he was unable to join us. He expressed his regret that he couldn't be with us tonight and extended his congratulations to our winners. We're delighted that Josh Lucas will join us in his stead for the presentation. We're also fortunate to have with us this evening two of our Scripter finalists, Rob Festinger, co-screenwriter of In the Bedroom. Rob? Congratulations. And Helen Fielding, author and co-screenwriter of Bridget Jones' Diary. Congratulations to you both. Great work. In one of A Beautiful Mind's most poignant scenes, Princeton faculty present their pens to John Nash in recognition of his outstanding achievements in his field. Sylvia and Akiva, tonight we would like to present you with some very special Scripter Award pens in honor of your literary excellence. Congratulations. We're proud to honor those individuals who give libraries their purpose. After all, without writers and the books and publications they produce, there would be no need for libraries nor for the breakthrough technology designed to link people with information, knowledge, and ideas. And writers, in turn, need good libraries. Books, journals, periodicals, archived documents undergird much of the research that goes into creating a great story. For example, Michael Chabon, last year's Scripter Award winner for his novel Wonder Boys, conducted some of his research for his subsequent Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, right here in Doheny Library. We are actively committed to preserving and enhancing this Doheny Library's vitality and beauty. Last October, the library was reintroduced to the university community after being closed for an 18-month seismic retrofit and preservation project. If you had walked into this room a year ago, as actually some of us did with hard hats, you wouldn't have recognized it. The wood and plaster inner walls were cut into pieces and dismantled. A frame of steel reinforcing bars was erected on the wall behind me, and high-power pumps shot concrete into that frame, creating a resilient new wall. Later, the sections of the interwall, and for that matter the ceiling, were seamlessly retrofitted so you couldn't tell that major surgery had taken place. The same process was repeated throughout the library. In addition, many of the building's gold leaf, wood, and plaster details were cleaned and restored. If you look up at the ceiling tonight, you can see the beautiful result of some of this work. In recognition, the building hasn't looked this good since 1932. In recognition of the high quality of the completed project, the Los Angeles Conservancy honored USC with a prestigious Preservation Award in the year 2001. Today, Doheny Library once again houses more than 750,000 volumes and features a number of new spaces, rooms, and programs that enhance the accessibility and usability of the library's resources and services, and helps the library meet the demands of the modern information environment. The new focus of Doheny Library, however, is not only on digital and traditional information, but on creating an atmosphere charged with intellectual stimulation and exchange. It's about reinventing the library so that it becomes a place where faculty and students meet to share knowledge and ideas, a place where primary materials unique to USC serve as the foundation for entirely new fields of study, and a place that attracts the brightest faculty and scholarly minds from around the world. Indeed, it's about creating here the library of the 21st century, for this, the university of the 21st century. The Doheny Preservation Fund, which benefits from your support of the Scripter Award, was established to provide a permanent source of support that will enable us to preserve and enhance Doheny Library for generations to come. This means that for so long as USC exists, so will Doheny Library, providing thousands upon thousands of students with a beautiful place to study, explore, and dream. It is where great careers and beautiful minds, and sometimes you wouldn't be surprised to know great romances, have begun. Countless Trojan couples first met in Doheny Library. For so many, it has been a great place to fall in love, and a great place, we believe, to fall in love with. Thank you again for helping us to preserve this great library as one of the preeminent cultural institutions in Los Angeles and the academic heart of the city's first university. Together, we are ensuring that generations to come will never be at a loss for words. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Campbell. Now, it's my great pleasure to introduce an accomplished actress, a beautiful woman, and a member of the Scripter Awards Selection Committee, Ann Archer. Ann gave an unforgettable performance as Michael Douglas's wife in Fatal Attraction, for which she earned an Oscar nomination. She also proved her mettle with Harrison Ford in both Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger. And she gave us a terrific performance in Robert Altman's Shortcuts. More recently, she played pivotal roles in Rules of Engagement and The Art of War. Ann's mother, Marjorie Lord Volk, is a wonderful actress herself. A woman who, I realized last year, every man in America had a crush on, and I thought I was the only one. But more importantly, she co-founded the Scripter Award 14 years ago with Glenn Sonnenberg. Both Maggie and Glenn are here in the audience this evening as members of the Scripter Award Event Committee and Selection Committee. And Ann has extended her mother's support of the Scripter Award by serving on the Selection Committee since the award's inception. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the lovely, the talented, Miss Everything, Ann Archer.
Good evening. A Beautiful Mind tells the story of John Nash, a mathematical genius from the hills of West Virginia, whose youthful ambition while attending Princeton is to discover a truly original idea. Nash eventually discovers his original idea and wins a coveted research and teaching position at MIT. It is there that Nash meets his future wife, Alicia Larday, a brilliant and beautiful physics student. Little does Alicia realize that the genius she loves is struggling with schizophrenia, nor can she foresee that, because of her love, Nash will eventually learn how to cope with his mental illness and one day find himself accepting the Nobel Prize. Let's take a look at this remarkable couple.
Alicia, does our relationship warrant long-term commitment? 'Cause I need some kind of proof, some kind of verifiable empirical data.
Sorry, just give me a moment to redefine my girlish notions of romance. A proof. Verifiable data. Okay. Well, how big is the universe?
Infinite.
How do you know?
I know because all the data indicate it's infinite.
But it hasn't been proven yet.
No.
You haven't seen it.
No.
How do you know for sure?
I don't, I just believe it.
It's the same with love, I guess.
Thank you, Anne. It is now my great pleasure to introduce Josh Lucas, who plays John Nash's Princeton nemesis, Martin Hansen. And wasn't he terrific? His portrayal of Judas in Terence McNally's controversial play Corpus Christi led Mary Harron to cast him in her film adaptation of Bret Easton Ellis's American Psycho. Since then, Josh has appeared as the estranged father in the Oscar-nominated You Can Count on Me, and wasn't that good? And he gave a memorable performance opposite Tilda Swinton in the Sundance Film Festival winner, The Deep End. Yeah. Josh will be co-starring with Reese Witherspoon in USC alumnus Andy Tennant's upcoming film, Sweet Home, Alabama. We are very pleased to have Josh with us tonight to introduce our second film clip and present this year's Author Award. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Josh Lucas.
Thank you. Last night, the writer of this movie took myself and the next presenter out and got us terribly drunk. So if we are a little shaky, the three of us, you must forgive us. The year is 1947, and the Cold War is on. The Soviet Union is competing with America for global supremacy, and both sides are tapping brilliant young minds to win. At Princeton, home to geniuses such as Einstein, John Nash finds himself in a hothouse of intellectual competition. His main rival is Martin Hansen, co-winner with Nash of a prestigious fellowship. Both young men are seeking the same coveted prize, a position at an MIT think tank. They size each other up, they push each other to greater heights, and their rivalry also sparks a friendship that will prove vital to Nash during his later struggle with schizophrenia. In the scene we are about to watch, Hansen dares Nash to play a game of Go, a game symbolic of the worlds and their own strategic rivalry. A beautiful mind.
I hate this game. Cowards, all of you. None of you rise to meet my challenge? Thank you, please. Come on, Bender. Whoever wins, Saul does his laundry all semester.
Does that seem unfair to anyone else?
Not at all. Look at him.
Ash, taking a reverse constitutional.
I'm hoping to extract an algorithm to define their movement.
Oh. So cool. Hey, Nash, I thought you dropped out. You ever gonna go to class? Or...
Classes will dull your mind, destroy the potential for authentic creativity.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Nash is gonna stun us all with his genius, which is another way of saying he doesn't have the nerve to compete. You scared?
Terrified, mortified, petrified, stupefied by you. No starch, pressed and folded.
I read this script and I wept and went out and bought the book immediately. And then read the book in 3 very, very difficult, beautiful sittings in a period of about 3 days. And it is now my great pleasure to introduce Sylvia Nasar, who, as tonight's recipient of the Authorial Scripter Award, extends a long tradition of literary excellence. Authors who've won this award in the past include Ann Tyler, Oliver Sacks, Norman MacLean, Thomas Keneally, Stephen King, Jane Austen, Michael Ondaatje, James Elroy, Jonathan Harr, and Michael Chabon. Sylvia has been no stranger to award ceremonies since the publication of A Beautiful Mind. The book garnered the 1998 National Books Critics Circle Award for Biography, was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize in Biography, and inspired a PBS television documentary after being adapted for the big screen. The book has also been honored by the 3 leading American mathematics societies, and that's difficult, and translated into more than a dozen languages. On behalf of the Friends of the USC Libraries, it is with a great honor that I present the 14th Annual Scripter Award to author Sylvia Nasar for her unforgettable biography, A Beautiful Mind.
Thank you. This is lovely, and I'm so honored to be here and amid this wonderful, wonderful company. And thank you very much, Josh. John Nash's truly original idea was a theory about competition and cooperation. His life featured both. At 21, Nash was playing a competitive game against some of the world's greatest mathematicians. One rival called him a bad boy, but a great one. Another said he was a brat. What redeemed him was a keen, logical, beautiful mind. What ultimately redeemed John Nash, however, was what he might have, as a young man, called a cooperative game. The rest of us, I guess, would call it love. In the depths of his illness, when he had already been in and out of hospitals for 10 years, suffering from delusions and hallucinations, no longer able to do mathematics, no longer able to work, he used to write letters to his old colleagues, to public figures, and to his wife, Alicia, letters that invariably ended with the following desperate plea: "Let me beg of you that you will personally favor the view that I ought to be guarded against the danger of hospitalization again, as I need protection as a conscious and reasonably conscientious human being." Miraculously, he was heard. Alicia, his loyal wife, and a handful of friends in the mathematical community, including John Milner, the brilliant mathematician on whom Josh's character Hansen is based. Miraculously, Alicia and these loyal friends heard his plea and refused to give up on him. Myth, drama, literature are full of countless stories of brilliant rises followed by tragic falls. Lear, Gatsby, Icarus. There are very, very few stories, much less true ones, however, that have a third act. Nash's story is one, and it's one of the most inspiring. But how do you tell a story like that on film? Breakthroughs in mathematics, like other sciences, are often the result of seeing that an insight or a technique found in some apparently unrelated field can be applied to an entirely new context to solve a hitherto untractable problem. Nash developed his truly original idea by borrowing a fixed point theorem from physics and applying it to social dynamics. It was pure genius on Akiva Goldsman's part to see that a device used in science fiction and film could be applied to a story about genius and madness to create a beautiful mystery about the human mind. Nash said at one point that his delusions came to him the same way my mathematical ideas did. Akiva's original idea draws audiences into Nash's mind and lets them see the world through his eyes. That experience has touched audiences greatly and left them with greater empathy and understanding for those who suffer from mental illness. Writers are supposed to hate movies inspired by their books. Some of my journalist friends were actually afraid to tell me how much they loved the movie. The fact is that I found Brian Grazer and Ron Howard's film to be tremendously moving. Yes, it's semi-fictional, but it's fiction of the most truthful kind. It doesn't take as many people to make a book as it does to make a movie, so I'm not going to need as long as Akiva will in a few minutes to acknowledge my debts. Among the people to whom I'm the most grateful are John and Alicia Nash, whose love story was a constant source of inspiration, Alice Mayhew, my editor, Kathy Robbins and Robert Bookman, my agents, and most of all, my children, Clara, Lily, and Jack, and my wonderful husband, Daryl. The nominees for this year's Scripter Award are extraordinary, and so are the past winners. To be in their company is humbling, to say the least. I'm very grateful to the Scripter Selection Committee and the organizers of tonight's lovely event, and of course, to my brilliant, creative, and deeply humane fellow nominee, Akiva, whose original idea is the reason we're here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Congratulations. Incidentally, John Nash is supposed to be on 60 Minutes tomorrow night. Just thought you might like to know that. Now, how does a great book become a great film? In the case of A Beautiful Mind, it began with Sylvia's exhaustively researched, expertly written biography of the great mathematician John Nash. Akiva Goldsman then read Sylvia's book while it was still in galley proofs and made the imaginative leap that transformed the narrative on the page into a compelling story for the screen. Finally, director Ron Howard, his film crew, his outstanding ensemble cast brought the story to life into moving and unforgettable scenes. Transforming a great book into a great film is a challenging process and is often hidden from our view. But tonight, Paul Bettany is going to give us a rare glimpse at this remarkable creative process. Paul comes from an extraordinarily theatrical background. A son and a grandson of actors, he studied at the Drama Centre in London before walking the boards in London's West End and performing with the Royal Shakespeare Company. And since then, he has electrified film audiences with his comic turn as Chaucer in The Knight's Tale and as Nash's prodigal roommate, Charles Herman, in A Beautiful Mind. We can next see Paul with Nicole Kidman in Dogville, and I'm looking forward to that. Tonight, Paul has joined us to introduce our final film clip and bestow this year's screenwriting laurels. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Paul Bettany.
Good evening. That was lovely, if completely fabricated. I'd like to reiterate that we did drink a frankly mesmerizing amount of alcohol last night, so forgive me. The scene from the film that I'm about to present takes place on the roof of a Princeton dormitory where Nash and Charles live. The scene obliquely alludes to a passage in the 9th chapter of Sylvia Nasar's biography, the chapter entitled The Bargaining Problem, which was one of Nash's seminal discoveries while he was still a student at Princeton. Here's a passage from the book. Nash's theory assumes that both sides' expectations about each other's behavior are based on the intrinsic features of the bargaining situation itself. The essence of a situation that results in a deal is two individuals who have the opportunity to collaborate for mutual benefit in more than one way. How they split the gain, he reasoned, reflects how much the deal is worth to each individual. In a sense, his contribution was not so much to solve the problem, but to state it in a simple and precise way so as to show that unique solutions were possible. The striking feature of Nash's paper is not its difficulty, or its depth, or even its elegance, or its generality, but rather that it provides an answer to an important problem. Reading Nash's paper today, one is struck most by its originality. Now, here's how Akiva ruined the scene. Mathematics won't lead us to a higher truth, John, because it's boring. Do you know that there are equations that can predict the rotation of galaxies as surely as the ebb and flow of human blood? There is a crystalline architecture to the universe that we can only glimpse, and that is the only truth. The math of things, the math of everything, the secrets implied by the world in whispers. We're gonna need more booze. You know, half these schoolboys are already published. I can't waste my time with these classes, these books, memorizing the weaker assumptions of lesser mortals. I need to look through to the governing dynamics to find a truly original idea. It's the only way I'll distinguish myself. It is the only way I will matter. Now, let's see how the arts of writing and Russell's and my frankly brilliant acting saved this scene. Thank you. Seriously, John? Mathematics? Mathematics is never going to lead you to a higher truth. And you know why? Because it's boring. It's really boring.
You know, half these schoolboys are already published. I cannot waste time with these classes and these books. Memorizing the weak assumptions of lesser mortals. I need to look through to the governing dynamics. Find a truly original idea. That's the only way I'll ever distinguish myself. It's the only way that I'll ever...
Massive.
Yes.
How about that perm? It now says that I've got to present this award to the screenwriter, and there follows a long list of lovely things to say about Akiva Goldsman, none of which I'm going to say. I'm afraid Akiva, if Akiva's taught me one thing, it's to speak from your heart as often as you can, and so I hope you'll all forgive me while I do exactly that and blushingly grope for the right words. And actually, that's the point, the struggle to find the right words. I love words, I love them. Not just as an actor, but as a human being. I think that language is the greatest achievement of mankind. And because we're conscious, we didn't just stop at words like danger and food and shelter. We invented words that describe our inner life and communicate them to our fellow man because it's necessary to us. Now, Akiva wrote a script full of words that struggled to cage ideas, make them accessible for us, and illuminate a man's inner life. And he did so with such eloquence that I knew if his words happened to fall out of our mouths in the right order, everything would be okay. And I knew when I read it that something as nice as this would happen to him. Now, as I've already said, I love words. I really love them. But this evening, no words can adequately describe how proud I am to stand here on behalf of the Friends of the USC Libraries and hand this 14th Annual Script Writing Award to my friend, the great writer, Akiva Goldsman.
Thank you. It's wonderful to finally be honored for Batman and Robin. Or not. Thanks, Polly. Okay. I have known this disease of schizophrenia long before I could pronounce its name. One of the earliest group homes for emotionally disturbed children was in my house. My parents founded it. And my mother, a child psychologist named Mira Rothenberg, writes of those early days in Brooklyn, and when she does, someone is constantly hanging the baby out the window or banging the baby against the wall, and I was the baby. And all the children that I lived with dreamed when they were awake, and no one told them or me that you weren't supposed to. They were called crazy, and they were referred to in a colloquial way as being without reason. And here is something that I knew, which is, if you are running from the man in the coat rack, or if you are brushing the fire off your shoulder, or if you are gazing at the horse floating in front of your third-story window, nothing these kids were doing was without reason. We just didn't understand their reasons. Sylvia's impeccable, stunning biography was the architecture of a man's life. And within it was the elusive center of the mind of somebody who suffers from this disease. What we tried to do with Beautiful Mind is to create, for just a second, the experience of what it might feel like to suffer. It has been an unbelievable journey. I never knew that I could be part of something that has affected people the way this has affected people. It is amazing to find myself reading letters that say, my mother is schizophrenic and my brother is schizophrenic, and I just want to tell you that you helped me understand what it feels like for them. This movie is not biography, nor is it a clinical list of symptoms. It is the use of language and image in order to simulate experience and create empathy. And if going home from the theater, one person looks at that man standing on the street corner screaming at empty air and sees them differently, then we've done our job. Sylvia's right. I have a lot of people to thank. I'll spare you. Universal and DreamWorks. the amazing, amazing Russell Crowe, a genius to play a genius. Ron Howard, who is actually exactly as nice as he seems, which makes no sense. An extraordinary cast. Obviously Jennifer Connelly, who is luminous, and Josh Lucas, and that Paul Bettany guy can act too. But mostly I'm gonna thank my mom, because this gets to be her journey too. And she taught me something which is something that I learned again from the miraculous John and Alicia Nash, and that is, it is good to have a beautiful mind, but a greater gift is to discover a beautiful heart. Thank you very much.
If we didn't know before, I think we just discovered that you have a beautiful heart, Akiva. Congratulations. And now, we have a very special musical surprise. USC alumnus and Academy Award-winning composer James Horner wrote the music for A Beautiful Mind and has received an Oscar nomination for his original score. Yes. And I'm delighted to introduce a soprano, Anya Matanovich, a vocal arts major. She's fabulous. We heard her in December. A vocal arts major in the USC Thornton School of Music. She will be accompanied by members of the USC Jazz Ensemble as she sings the movie's theme song, All Love Can Be. Tanya. Wow, beautiful, wasn't it? Beautiful performance. I also want to thank our award presenters, Miss Everything Ann Archer, Josh Lucas, Paul Bettany, and our winners Sylvia Nasar and Akiva Goldsman for an unforgettable evening. The night is still young. For those of you who can't bring yourselves to leave this beautiful library, the music will continue to play, the bar will continue to serve until midnight. But before the party begins, I'd like to invite our Grand Master of Ceremonies, our living legend. Wake him up, there he is. Mr. Hal Cantor, back to the podium to deliver his benediction.
Thank you, Gavin. You have done an admirable job this evening, and you certainly deserve our applause. You kept this thing moving. Of all the friends of the USC's Libraries 14th Annual Scripter Awards, I hope you'll all agree with me that this one was by far the most recent. And in thanking our presenters, congratulating our winners, and bowing to Sue Femino, her board, Dr. Campbell, his staff, producer Tony Miller, and hers, I am reminded of a story to close these ceremonies. The great Billy Wilder had a teacher in Germany who had the odd habit of closing his eyes whenever he spoke. He was also given to long, rambling discourse, and once, when he addressed a large symposium, as he droned on and on and on, people began to walk out of the hall. And when he finally opened his eyes, there was only one man left. Startled, he asked, "Where is everybody?" And the man said, "They left." "And who are you?" he asked. And the man said, "I'm the next speaker." You may be comforted to know there is no next speaker tonight. Good night, all.